deciding what type of business style you are actually creating. A lot of people don't give this any thought. They just think, I want to be in an online business, or I want to, open a shop, or I want to do anything. But they don't think about the type of business they are trying to create. So first thing, there are effectively 3 business models. There are only 3 business models. 2 of them are good. 1 of them is atrocious. And guess what? 90% of people are using that particular business model. And we need to figure out which ones those are. And I want to lay those out on the table. So let's talk about the 3 styles of business. There are only 3. This, for want of a better term, is the unicorn style business. This is your classic startup, founder, take it big story. This is your Instagram. This is your Facebook. This is the taking a business to $50 or $100 million of revenue. This is the big deal, the big enchilada, the unicorn, the $1 billion valuation sort of approach. And this, actually, I find a lot of entrepreneurs, when I'm speaking to them initially, this is what they have in mind for success. And that is really super cool, as long as you understand what you are in for. Now, there's a couple of key things. The first thing is you notice that that line dips. Now, let me explain these axes to you for a second. You'll notice the horizontal axis is time, right? So that's the length of time it takes. And then the vertical axis is the amount of money you make, the amount of money you put in your pocket, the profits, okay, the making money part of it. Now you'll notice in these unicorn style businesses that the line goes south, like you are spending a lot of money and time and energy before you have that huge payday and off it takes. That's the model that works, right? You build that business and often you're building it free, and then you look for a revenue model, you get it and you work. It's a completely legitimate way to do business, no question about it. But you have to understand what that takes. And where's that cross line? The average cross line for making money in that style of startup situation, according to the latest studies out of MIT, it is 7.2 years. So it's 7.2 years. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is the amount of effort and energy that it takes to do a unicorn business. Now, you don't see Mark Zuckerberg talk about the 4-hour work week. That Facebook is a 24/7 thing, and kudos for him. He just took a month or so off because he had his first child, which is awesome, brilliant. But up until that point, and by the way, it's 12 years, since Facebook. In between then and 12 years, had he ever taken a month off? No, it's 24/7. It's an intensity of work that is enormous. You have to dedicate your life to it, and that is cool. If that's you, awesome. I've worked with some fantastic entrepreneurs and apply these systems to people who are doing exactly that, who are building that $10 to $100 million a year business. Good for you. That's awesome. I know what it's like. In my 20s, when I didn't know better, that's what I thought the holy grail was. And I had a business. I had a business with 150 employees. They were all over the planet. And it was a 24/7 deal. And I've got to tell you, that's not really where I'm at these days. The next one is sort of where I'm at, and where I suspect quite a few of you are at too. Let's have a look at what I call the niche style business. So you can see on this chart, what we've got is a slow uptake, and you can see at about 12 months, the idea is to have a revenue of $100,000. That to me is super realistic, particularly because most people, when they're starting off this journey, are actually working in another job completely. Their source of revenue comes from a completely different place. I think that having looked at a decade of the challenge, 10 years of seeing people, this is something I've seen done again and again and again. It's super achievable. Why do I call it a niche style business? Because you're designing your work around your lifestyle, not the other way around. You're not trying to squeeze lifestyle in between your commitments to work. Now, look, I know, and this is going to be a bit controversial, a lot of people talk about the passive business and you're off sailing the Caribbean for 12 months and money is passively coming into your business. Frankly, I think that's crap. If you go away from any business, and I don't care how well run it is, and you come back in 12 months without checking in, at best, there'll be a smoking crater of what resembled your business, at best. Worst, people have run off with your dog, wife, bank account, and everything else, right? It's just not realistic. What's real and what's very achievable is that you should be able to go away for 6 weeks or 8 weeks and check in once a week and have a system and a process, which means that you can take the kids to school, you can take those 3 days off, you can have that 4-day weekend. All of those sorts of things, super achievable and super make sense, particularly stay tuned for the third video when we take a lesson from the software world and apply it to entrepreneurs. And this is mind-blowing, so stay tuned for that. But this niche style business, this is something that's super achievable when you think of the whole concept of 1,000 true fans. I love this. Kevin Kelly wrote the blog post on his Cool Things some years ago now, but I just keep reminding people again and again of this because it's such a powerful concept. If you find 1,000 people around the globe, from around the globe, 1,000 people who are prepared to pay you one day's average wage, which in most Western economies works out to about $100 a day. Just 1,000 people who are paying you $100 out of the year, just for a whole year, they pay you $100. Is that realistic? Well, let me ask you, think about your favourite hobby, something that you enjoy doing. Maybe it's even online marketing. How much have you spent on that hobby for the last 12 months? More than $100? Of course it is, right? Of course. So that's realistic. 1,000 people, $100 over the course of the year. That's a $100,000 a year business. That's enough because we know from the stats of Daniel Pink's amazing book Drive. Once people start earning over $70,000, sure, you're not driving around in Ferraris and have 6,500 square foot houses, but you can live, right? And all of a sudden, you can have choices. And that's exciting to me. That makes a hell of a lot of sense. That is really possible. And that's what we try to design with a niche style business. And I suspect for a lot of you, I know a lot of people who are my age and up, they've done the 40, 60, 80 hours a week. They want something that will sustain them. Retirement is really, what is retirement these days? But you want to do something you enjoy. You want to work in something that's fun, that you're passionate about, where you can help people. That's what we want to achieve here. And that's what I think is really possible if we look at the Achiever formula. But you've got to know what you are first before we can do that. So we've got that. What's the third business, I hear you say? And why do you say that 90% of people? Well, let's have a look at this chart. Have a look at it. Sometimes up, sometimes down. They're making 10,000 this year and then losing 10,000 the next year. They have a couple of good years, a couple of bad years with the economy. This chart pretty much describes how many people do you know who own a business, who are entrepreneurs, who are literally trapped inside that business. I sadly know way too many. And they're trapped. They don't know what to do. They can't, it's just, if they stop, the money stops and they're stuffed, right? They're underwater financially and metaphorically. What happens if they get stuck in that? Well, they can't sell the business because it requires them. They can't go away because they're trapped. They're trapped in the business. And unfortunately, even online businesses, I see a lot of people who are in this situation. Now, if I'm describing you, all is not lost. No way. In fact, we had in our control group at the end of last year, we had a bunch of people in this situation. Now, here's the thing. You just have to transition to one of the two good models, the unicorn model or the niche style model. So they're the three types of businesses. There are two that are good. You need to choose. You need to say, I'm creating a niche style business, I'm creating a unicorn business, or, oh God, if you look at it, I'm in the third, I'm in the stuck business that just seems to be treading water. I need to make a change. Because what's that classic definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome.